Question: are you aware that the screen you stare at for hours a day emits blue light that can cause digital eye strain, headaches, and blurred vision? For some people, blue light even contributes to anxiety and depression. It was affecting my sleep, and you may be in the same position. Blue Blocks was created to change this with high-quality lenses made in a specialized optics laboratory in Australia. With 40 frames, they come in prescription, non-prescription, and readers. So you're going to find exactly what you need. I'm wearing the Summer Glows. To do my work on my computer at home, they keep my eyes fresh and they improve my sleep. Blue Blocks is also giving back by working in partnership with Restoring Vision in their Buy One, Gift One campaign. For each pair of Blue Blocks glasses purchased, they donate a pair of reading glasses to someone in need. Get your energy back, sleep better, and block out the unhealthy effects of blue light with Blue Blocks. That's Blue Blocks, BLUBLOX.com/Chael, or click on the link and make sure to use the code Chael. That's going to get you 20% off your order, and you can enjoy free worldwide shipping on all orders over $115. So who should Jake Paul fight next? And it's a very fair question for you guys to answer, because there isn't some room of paid matchmakers that are sitting down, going over game film, looking at records. There's not an organizing body going through a ranking and or a title system, right? I mean, you guys are going to pick who should he fight next. Who do you want to see him fight? Dana came out and weighed in on it and said, quit talking to me about my guys. Go fight a boxer. If you're a boxer now, go fight another boxer. That was Dana's take on it. Daniel Cormier somehow said something along Paul, very dismissive. Just, man, why would I ever fight this guy, heavyweight champion of the world? Of which Daniel is right, but Paul responded and called Daniel something or teased him about the loss to Stipe. Tyron Woodley seems to be a little bit of a front runner, in my opinion. That's in old Chael's opinion, until we kind of sit down and hear these different ideas. Tyron had some kind of organic piece in the locker room, and the dirt sheets that I go to, the Manias and the Elbows of the world, were coming out and saying, Paul punks. I watched that thing twice. Nothing happened. Tyron was a gentleman. He was outnumbered 5-1. He was in the locker room. I only bring that to you because I'm not really sure why some of these dirt sheets are still continuing to do clickbait. You have Paul, who's a proven draw. You have Tyron Woodley, who's the champion of the world. Like, you don't need to lie within the caption and act as though these guys had some kind of a dust-up just because one of the cornermen said something to Tyron and Tyron responded, not to mention pleasantly. I just have to bring that to you because of that video going around. A lot of people think there's a fight to be had there. I think because Tyron is Askren's boy is why you've got to fight there. Not to mention that's a totally different dynamic. Askren, who won world championships in MMA by taking people down and keeping them there. Tyron, who won a world championship in MMA by throwing a right hand and knocking out Robbie Lawler, right? I mean, you have a very different fight. I don't need to explain that for you. But the question does start to become, who do you go to with Paul and why? Because, guys, don't ever forget. Don't ever forget. Don't let anybody ever talk you out of this. And one thing that Paul is he's the smartest guy in the room, at least in the rooms that he's surrounded himself with, right? He's done a very good job. Both Pauls have figured this out. And it has created a jealousy like you haven't seen in a period of time. Right? Frank Mir's a 2-time champion of the world, by example. Whoever that bum was that Frank fought, that guy was the worst fighter on the card. I can't think of his name. His name was like Thurman, but whoever that bum was, he was a champion at one point. They opened the card for Paul. Okay, are you following me here? These guys are opening the card. But Duke Jack on the previous card of the Nate Robinson, Mike Tyson, Roy Jones fight. But Duke Jack, who's a legit boxer and a legit title contender and will likely have a world title, had to open for Paul. Paul, who had done this twice before, is the co-main event while Duke Jack is opening the show. I keep talking to you guys. Your ranking is nowhere near as important as your placement on the card. And you can be a hater, you absolutely can. But if you're missing what Paul has done, oh, by the way, times 2. There's 2 of them. They figured it out. These guys are main eventers. These guys are headlining shows. Ariel Helwani, who works for ESPN, is saying things on social media that the world needs to accept it, and we just need to figure out who's next for Paul. And Ariel's right. I bring this to you because you don't want to miss what's going on here. And the golden rule of which Paul is going to know at all times, you want to fight the easiest guy for the largest paycheck. That's what the business side of this is. And you can only get away with easy guys for so long, but that's still your goal. The easiest guy for the biggest paycheck. The smallest guy in the largest venue. That's who you want to fight. And Paul is nowhere near having to prove himself with an aspiring Olympian or a Golden Gloves champion or a professional boxer. He's nowhere near that. I like the Tyron Woodley fight. I think that works for a lot of reasons. I like the idea of the MMA guy versus the boxer. I like Tyron versus trying to redeem something for Askren. There's a number of things I like about it. There's probably a number of other fighters where we can insert, and I would say I like that too. But to watch people out of jealousy trying to get Paul to do something that they know he shouldn't do, they know it's not the smartest thing to do, they just want to see him get beat. And that's okay. I'm stating the obvious for you, right? We're seeing it happen with John Jones right now. People are trying to force John to have to fight Francis. When John is very open, I don't want to fight Francis. And if I got to go out and I got to get carried out on a stretcher, I'm going to need something for it. It's one of these things where if this isn't from a competitive background, don't do it. But you also shouldn't support that as a fan. Unless you think John can go out there and compete with Francis. Come on, don't try to force him to do that. But the same thing goes with Paul. And I think that there's plenty of room here. Why would Paul, who is now a record-setting pay-per-view commodity, proven draw, who can force a two-time UFC champion, Frank Mir, who beat Brock Lesnar, to open the card for him? I mean, we have to admit this guy's got it figured out. And people are continuing to come out and they're trying to put down boxing. I don't think that I agree. I think that Paul has greatly helped boxing. Now, I also understand that the sport of boxing is in a terrible place, but it's been in a terrible place for a period of time with no end in sight. There's simply no leadership. Boxing has never made it acceptable to lose. Every other sport you can get beat. LeBron James loses 10, 15 times a year. LeBron James has lost before on a Thursday and been crowned MVP and world champion on a Sunday. That's legitimate. That is a literal statement. Right? They go the best of 7. It's one of those things. Tiger Woods could lose 12, 13 people in one day. In one tournament, he could come in number 14, number 19, lose to all these people. Every sport, losing is acceptable. It's part of putting it on the line. It's part of true competition, except boxing, and that's boxing's fault. That's not the boxers or the managers or the pundits. That is the leadership of boxing who has always coveted these fake records, these fake inflated records, 22-0 versus 30-0, 19 knockouts versus 18 knockouts, right? They've always done that as a way to try to bring people in, and then they'll lay an absolute egg. It's painfully boring to watch, but that poster was beautiful, and you think, by God, next time. Look, that's a real thing in boxing, and it's got us to this point. It doesn't need to move forward that way. That was never a very compelling storyline. It was a way to bring people in, but boxing used to follow the carny recipe as well, same as pro wrestling. But they were in large part carnies. You're moving from town to town. You're setting up a tent. You're bringing the guys out there. Sometimes it dives, sometimes it's not. And you start padding these records, and all of a sudden you get to 30-0, you can go fight for a world championship. And I will maintain for you that, yes, I'm well aware that that is the history of boxing and it is what got it boxing this far. What I'm trying to share with you is that doesn't need to be true. Doesn't need to be true at all. And Paul, in many ways, is proving that. If you've got a level of celebrity, you're willing to work. I mean, we're in a very unusual spot right now, but we're also seeing the Evander Holyfields come back. That isn't just because he's a veteran who we respect and have nostalgia for. It's because he has a level of name recognition. And we like to come along and see what he's going to do. Not to mention they're doing a great job of manipulating and changing the rounds. 12 rounds of boxing is painful. It's just too much. But it's also why a boxing promoter can't do what, say, a Dana White or a Scott Coker does, which is give you a main card. A main card with a main event. You're just going to have the main event. One of those things. You guys even see that on TV. They got a big fight, Las Vegas. You see the co-main event, and the crowd is all dressed up like empty seats. And by the time the main event comes, man, that place is absolutely packed. I can't relate. If I'm a ticket buyer, particularly a destination city, which means I've flown in, which means I got a hotel, I got my wife with me. I mean, it's one of these things. I'm taking in that whole show. I had to buy my mother a ticket to McGregor Mayweather the day before. She decides the day before she wants to go. So she's up in the nosebleeds. I'm out $2,300. I said, Mom, you're From the opening fight, you're going to be here. Of course I'm going to be here. I come all the way to Vegas for nothing. So I'm only sharing that I can't relate, but I'm also trying to paint a picture for you. This is what has gotten boxing to where it is. There's another way. Triller is putting on awful shows. Triller is sending things back. They're bringing in drunks and drug addicts to their commentating desk. However, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And my goal here isn't to come put Triller down. It's actually not my goal in the least. A broken clock is right twice a day. Triller is doing some stuff very well. Now, even though this event, on accident, every now and then, a boxing match broke out. That was what was disappointing, right? We're boxing fans and we're forced to watch all this other stuff. It was painful. Those matches are still a lot better. Watching Frank Mir out there for 6 rounds is a lot better than watching him for 12, just by example. I'll bring Frank into it, a friend of mine, name that you guys would know. But the same could be said for Tyson versus Roy Jones. That was damn near perfect. And don't forget, not only did they shorten the rounds, those were 2-minute rounds. So a broken clock is right twice a day. Triller's got a hold of something here. They just don't have leadership in an office. They don't have creative control. They're not going to be able to fire the guy that did such a colossally bad job because he brought him in so much money. I mean, what would you guys? Do you see where that's a problem? You're in an office, somebody has screwed up because this product is humiliating. But it made $70 million and we used your idea. You can't send that guy home. Right? You just can't do it. You guys might remember the Monday Night Wars. But Vince Russo was bought by WCW. He was paid $330,000 a year. Vince just simply couldn't match that. And Vince Russo went over and started writing for WCW, but it worked. WCW was beating the WWE in the ratings until they weren't. And many people believe that Vince Russo and Vince McMahon were in cahoots. And Vince McMahon allowed him to go there and allowed him to run it into the ground. But it was the same problem. WCW couldn't win the ratings with Vince Russo's writings. And then as things started to change, fire him because it's the same guy that created him in the first place. You just see where it starts to be a problem? I bring it to you because I don't suggest that they've done everything wrong. Paul has done nothing wrong. Paul has done a whole bunch of stuff right. Absolutely a whole bunch of stuff right. But it's the same reason John Jones doesn't have to go fight Francis just because you want to see him get beat. He's not trying to get beat. Oh, and by the way, he's got a lot of power here. Oh, and by the way, he's got a lot of control. And by the way, I must add for you, I don't think the experiment is done. I'm watching Paul get better in front of my eyes. I'm watching it. Now, it's easy to see because there's a lot of room to get better. Okay? Pretty tough guy. His skills aren't bad. They used to be bad. They're not bad anymore. They're also not good. He's not a good boxer. We can see him growing. We can see that he's putting time in the gym. We can see that he's got a little bit of ice running through his veins. To walk out into that situation with everything that happened, to sit in the back for 4 or 5 hours, to have all the stuff that happened and still walk out there and be able to perform. To still set that up and throw that punch. And a couple of good body shots before that knockout punch, too. I must give him his due. I mean, I'll say what I see, and that's what I saw. There's no reason that he needs to go out if he doesn't have world and Olympic aspirations. Okay, and a true boxer that really wants to know who's the best in the world will always go through the amateurs. It's the only competitive architecture. I had Layla Ali on this show. You guys might remember, it's a number of years ago. Layla said in her whole career she had one regret competitively, which is that she didn't go through the Olympic process. And she stated because in boxing, that is the only process we have to actually figure out who is best. And Layla had won a bunch of world championships. I want to say 4. I want to say she had 4 world championships, but I know I'm close. And she even questioned him. She goes, well, promoters matched me up and I'm my father's daughter and I worked hard and I was pretty good, but unless I was to go through the amateurs, that was the only way to actually let your skills speak for themselves. I just thought it was a very honest answer. And it was very true. And this isn't a goal of Paul's, and I think that's okay. His draw is, his goal is to draw. His goal is to win. His goal is to continue to win while he's doing everything right. So if the day comes that he's got to jump in there with a boxer, why? If he's not going through world or Olympic competitive architecture, then you never know where he would stand anyway. You guys remember when there was even a show made on this? Top song Top music. The top song in the country. You probably heard the Casey Kasem countdown when you were a kid. Do you know how he came to that list, though? Do you understand how you have the top 50 songs in the country? It isn't who can carry a tune in a bucket. It isn't the beat. It is whatever song is played the most throughout America for the week is the number one song in the country. So all the radio stations everywhere have to tally up and turn in what songs they played and at what minute of what hour they played them, and somebody will keep track of whatever song is played the most is the number one. Are you aware of that? Doesn't mean who was the best. Didn't mean who had the best tune or the best beat. And I make the same argument for acting. I think the two most solid people you can count on in Hollywood are Denzel and Mark Wahlberg. Now, I understand that they're not the greatest thespians. They aren't Daniel Day-Lewis. They're not even Gary Olson on particular days, but they're reliable. They pick scripts that they can deliver. They will take your $10 and give you 2 honest hours of entertainment. You'll never regret it, but I bring this to you because the way numbers get broken down, for heaven's sakes, in the world of rodeo, do you know what it means to be a world champion? In the world of rodeo, they would take 1 calendar year, and whatever cowboy made the most money is the world champion. So even if he's not as good of a rider or a roper as other guys, but he was able to enter more events to add up the tally, he can be the world champion. They'll go to the National Finals Rodeo, the only rodeo that's shown on all of TV. You could come in 7th place and be crowned the world champion. There's no other sport like that. They used to do this in judo. To get to the Olympic Games in judo, and Ronda Rousey is the one that explained this to me, and I'm trying to think of what year she represented the country, but she went 2 different times, and I believe it was 2004 and 2008. As a matter of fact, I am right, and it was even true as recently as that. Again, there was a year, and there was certain tournaments. They were ran by a corrupt organization of a bunch of drunks from France that have all been fired, and 2 of them arrested, called FILA, the same crooks that ruined wrestling. But what they would do is they would hold these FILA tournaments all over the world, and over the course of the year, whoever went and scored the most points got to be the Olympic representative. So now it turns into whose dad has the most money and can just simply get you to the tournament. You could lose dominantly to somebody, to even a fellow countryman. But if you had more points because your father got you to more tournaments, you got to go and represent us in the Olympic Games. Now, I'm bringing this to you because some of this stuff is going to wow you. Even the way that they do gymnastics, which is the hardest and most difficult and most respected sport as far as pure athleticism goes, the Carolis have been picking the team every 4 years. Just by example, here's a tournament, you, and you. With no proof. Same thing we do with the Dream Team in basketball. There's absolutely no proof. There's no playoff. I bring it to you because why should Paul have to go and fight a boxer? Why should Paul have to fight a top 10 guy? Why should Paul have to back up anything that he says? Why? If the numbers support it and the interest is there and there's still enough people to fight, it's a very interesting experiment. And this isn't taking us back to 1993 of putting the striker versus the grappler. That's not what we're doing. That's what De La Hoya, by example, might be trying to do. De La Hoya is a true boxer, 92 Olympic gold medalist. Went on all sorts of different weight classes, shared the ring with Floyd Mayweather. I bring the two because if De La Hoya went after a basketball player or a wrestler or a UFC guy, sure, he's taken us back to 1993 and something we've already done, but he's a true boxer. Paul's not. Paul's just identified that he loves boxing. Paul's identified, this is what I want to do. I love the sport. This is my chosen sport. He's not a boxer. I mean, I only say it because people are saying he's got to go fight a boxer. Why? He's not a boxer. He's a tough guy that wants to go out and compete, went and got himself in shape, and at some point you have to pick the rule set, and he chose Queensberry. But you do have to understand that, and you have to give Paul a little bit of a break. You act like he's picking on people from another sport. He's not from the sport. He's only 3 times now? Am I missing one? I get confused between him and his brother. Has he been in there 4 times? You get my point? Think about you. Maybe you've never boxed. You guys basically have the same record. He's done it 4 times. You've done it no times. That's pretty close to the same thing. So people that are trying to act as though he's a boxer and he should have to fight other boxers, why? He's a tough guy and he's a competitor. He picked the rules of Queensberry. I only bring it to you because I think there's a number of good options, but I think that Paul should look around, and if he's got to go fight a famous rapper, fine. A fellow celebrity, a YouTube, an actor, Mario Lopez. I mean, something along these lines. What's the difference? Mario's not a boxer, but neither is Paul. Paul just said, I'm going to compete with you. We got to choose the rules, and these are the ones we're going to go by. And as far as Triller ruining boxing, come on, man. Absolutely. They're brand new to the game. You guys ruined boxing back in the 50s. You guys ruined boxing so bad that the government had to step in and regulate it. Nowhere in the world outside of communist regimes does government oversee sport. Well, except here in boxing, because you screwed it up so bad. So don't blame Triller, and damn sure you don't blame Jake Paul.